People once saw the Oregon Trail as a path to a fresh start, a lush, green land full of opportunity. By 2026, that journey has reversed. Instead of moving toward a Pacific paradise, people are leaving in droves. Families pack their U-Hauls under gray skies, abandoning neighborhoods that are quickly turning empty. This isn't just happening in small towns. Major cities now have "for sale" signs on lawns, untouched since 2024. The housing market has crashed, and the warning signs have been clear for years. Rising costs and punishing taxes are pushing homeowners to walk away. We've ranked the 10 hardest-hit cities where houses sit empty, waiting for buyers who aren't coming. Stick around. Number 1 was once a West Coast gem but now looks like a dystopian movie set. If you value honest takes on the housing market, subscribe, share with friends considering a move west, and comment where you'd go instead. Let's see just how badly Oregon's housing scene has changed. Number 10. Gresham. Your first stop takes you just east of the main city, and you might assume that being so close to a major metro area would protect a place like Gresham. But that assumption couldn't be further from reality. This used to be a calm, suburban retreat, the kind of neighborhood people chose when they wanted some peace and quiet without giving up an easy commute into the city. Now, though, as you make your way down Powell Boulevard, the stillness feels different. It's not calming. It's heavy, almost unsettling in a way that's hard to ignore. The silence here doesn't come from tranquility anymore. It comes from the fact that people have packed up and moved on. Rows of modest ranch-style homes, once a symbol of middle-class stability, now sit empty. Their windows are dark, and wild blackberry bushes have taken over fences that used to mark cared-for yards. The economic pressure in this area is hitting residents hard, harder than a harsh winter ever could. Recent data from the U.S. Census Bureau shows the poverty rate in Gresham steadily rising, now hovering close to 17%. That means nearly 1 out of every 5 people is struggling just to cover basic expenses, which sheds light on why so many homes are being left behind. But the issue goes beyond income alone. Reports from Redfin reveal that homes in this area are sitting on the market for more than 60 days on average. That's a sharp increase, and it signals something serious. Buyer demand has practically disappeared. Sellers are cutting prices in an effort to attract interest, but even with those reductions, buyers just aren't stepping in. To really understand why people are leaving, you have to consider safety concerns as well. Local police data points to property crime rates that are about 42% higher than the national average. It raises a tough question. Who wants to commit to a mortgage when there's constant worry about break-ins or theft? And then there's the tax burden, which only adds to the strain. Property taxes in Multnomah County are putting serious pressure on homeowners, with some paying close to $6,000 a year for relatively modest houses in neighborhoods that are clearly declining. According to Neighborhood Scout, the odds of becoming a victim of violent crime here stand at roughly 1 in 158. That's not exactly reassuring. It feels more like a gamble every time you step outside your front door. Meanwhile, as more businesses shut down along the main commercial areas, empty storefronts are becoming increasingly common. With the local economy weakening, it simply can't sustain the number of homes in the area. What you're witnessing is a classic case of suburban decline, where the financial and personal costs of staying no longer justify calling the place home. Number 9. Coos Bay. As you head southwest toward the coastline, you arrive in Coos Bay, and almost immediately, one thing stands out: the overwhelming grayness. The sky is dull, the ocean mirrors that same muted tone, and honestly, the outlook here feels just as bleak. This town was once known as the largest lumber shipping port in the world, a place full of hard-working energy and blue-collar pride. Now, winding your way along the coastal roads, it feels less like a thriving community and more like a forgotten exhibit, something frozen in time that hardly anyone comes to see anymore. The sense of isolation is impossible to ignore. You're miles, hours really, away from any major city, and in 2026, that remoteness has shifted from being charming to being a serious disadvantage for the housing market. One of the biggest reasons homes are sitting empty here comes down to demographic changes. According to state economic data, the median age in Coos Bay has climbed past 42, noticeably older than much of the rest of the state. Younger residents tend to leave for college or better opportunities elsewhere, and most of them never return. What's left is an aging population, many of whom are either passing on or moving into assisted living, leaving their houses behind with no one to take ownership. As a result, those homes are simply sitting there, slowly deteriorating, with no real demand. Zillow market data shows that available housing inventory has jumped by around 30% compared to last year, yet actual sales haven't increased at all. What you're seeing is a growing surplus of older, weather-worn homes, many of which need significant repairs just to be livable again. And then there's the job market, which isn't doing the area any favors. The Bureau of Labor Statistics consistently reports unemployment rates here above the national average, often hovering between 6% and 7%. Without steady job opportunities, it's nearly impossible to attract younger families or new residents to the area. On top of that, coastal living comes with its own harsh realities. It might sound appealing at first, but when you factor in nearly 80 inches of rain each year, it becomes clear how much damage that kind of climate can cause. Local contractors estimate that close to 25% of homes currently on the market suffer from serious issues like water damage or mold. That alone is enough to scare off even retirees who might otherwise consider relocating here. The financial situation for many residents is also concerning. City data indicates that more than 21% of the population lives below the poverty line, and you can feel that hardship as you pass boarded-up shops lining Highway 101. At the end of the day, Coos Bay may be undeniably scenic, but it's far from ideal if you're trying to build a stable, long-term future, and the growing number of empty driveways tells that story all too clearly. Number 8. Klamath Falls. Continuing your trip over the mountain range and into the high desert, you eventually arrive in Klamath Falls. And if you thought the coast felt remote, this place takes that isolation to a whole different level. It truly feels like you've landed in the middle of nowhere. This town has faced challenges for years, but by 2026 things have reached an entirely new low. The air is dry out here, and somehow, the housing market feels even more barren. As you pass through neighborhood after neighborhood, there's a sense that time just stopped, like the only thing still operating is a slow, steady decline. They call it the City of Sunshine, which might sound appealing on paper, but in reality that sunlight just highlights the wear and tear, faded paint, cracked driveways, and homes that have clearly been left behind. A major factor in the town's downturn has been the ongoing water crisis, which has devastated the region's agricultural foundation. With farms scaling back due to relentless drought conditions and ongoing disputes over water rights, the local economy has taken a serious hit. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the area's GDP has dropped significantly, and when agriculture suffers, the entire community feels the impact. That strain shows up clearly in household earnings. Census data indicates that the median household income here barely reaches $45,000, which falls well below the national average. Trying to maintain a home on that kind of income is a real challenge, especially with rising costs eating away at whatever little margin people have left. Then there's the issue that often goes unspoken: crime. FBI statistics consistently rank Klamath Falls among the highest in the state for property crime relative to its size. We're talking about roughly 55 incidents per 1,000 residents, a number high enough to make many homeowners reconsider staying at all. It's no surprise that some are choosing to relocate to places like Idaho or Nevada in search of a fresh start. When it comes to property values, the situation isn't any better. While much of the country experienced significant growth in home prices, data from Realtor.com shows that this area has seen almost no appreciation over the past 5 years. In other words, homeowners aren't building wealth. They're essentially paying into something that's losing value over time. On top of all that, the county's overall health outcomes paint a troubling picture. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation ranks it near the bottom in Oregon, reflecting broader issues that go beyond just economics. When you combine limited job opportunities, declining health conditions, and rising crime, the result is hard to miss. Entire streets where homes sit dark night after night. It's a difficult reality to face, especially considering how much natural beauty surrounds the area. Number 7. Roseburg. Next, you make your way north along Interstate 5 and arrive in Roseburg. This area was once known for its strong ties to the timber industry, but those days are long gone. As you exit the highway, the town gives off a worn-down feeling, almost like it's stuck in a constant state of exhaustion it can't shake. When the timber industry collapsed years ago, it hit this community hard, and despite the time that's passed, it never truly bounced back. By 2026, that slow decline has clearly sped up. Driving past the remains of old mill sites and into nearby neighborhoods, you start noticing for sale signs that have been sitting out so long they've faded under the sun. One of the biggest factors behind the housing issues here is the impact of the opioid and meth crisis, which has deeply affected the community. It's impossible to talk about the local real estate situation without acknowledging the broader social challenges at play. Reports from regional health authorities show overdose rates well above the state average, and that reality spills directly into everyday life in these neighborhoods. Some homes have been stripped down entirely, copper wiring and plumbing removed, leaving behind structures that are no longer livable. That raises an obvious question. Who would invest in a gutted property in an area struggling with widespread drug issues? The answer, unfortunately, is very few people, if any. Data from Adam indicates that foreclosure rates in the county are actually rising, even as many parts of the country are seeing more stability. At the same time, the local job market has shifted dramatically. According to the state's employment department, the higher-paying manufacturing jobs that once supported families and homeownership have largely disappeared, replaced by low-wage service positions. It's tough to keep up with mortgage payments when you're earning close to minimum wage. Even the rental market reflects the strain. HUD estimates show vacancy rates around 8%, which is unusually high for a town this size, largely because people are moving away in search of better opportunities in places like Eugene or Salem. Population growth has essentially stalled as well. Figures from Best Places suggest the area is barely growing at all. It's more like standing still than moving forward. And then there's the added concern of wildfire risk. In certain areas where urban development meets wildland, insurance companies are starting to pull out, refusing to cover properties altogether. Without insurance, securing a mortgage becomes nearly impossible. That leaves many homes limited to cash-only buyers, if they can find any, which further stalls the market and leaves more properties sitting empty. Altogether, Roseburg is dealing with a complex mix of economic hardship and environmental risk, creating a situation that's incredibly difficult to turn around. Number 6. Medford. You continue driving south, getting closer and closer to the California border until you finally reach Medford. At first glance, you might expect a warm, inviting retirement destination, but what actually greets you is a much harsher reality. By 2026, Medford has turned into a kind of epicenter for a housing market that feels like it's under pressure from every direction, both figuratively and quite literally. Summers here are no longer just hot. They're defined by thick wildfire smoke that settles over the Rogue Valley for weeks at a time, casting the sky in an eerie orange glow. It's tough to promote an active, outdoor lifestyle when the air quality stays at hazardous levels for extended stretches. As you drive through suburban streets, something quickly stands out. For sale signs seem to outnumber the trees themselves. At the core of the issue is a growing gap between what people earn and what it actually costs to live here. Economic data shows that while home prices jumped nearly 40% earlier in the decade, wages have only increased by around 12%. That kind of imbalance just isn't sustainable. What you end up with is a large number of residents who are financially stretched to the limit. And when any economic instability hits, they're often the first to fall behind on payments. Zillow data further shows that the rent-to-income ratio in Medford ranks among the worst on the West Coast, with many households spending close to half their total income just on housing. Then there's what you see out on the streets. It's hard to ignore the sharp rise in homelessness throughout the area. Recent counts indicate that the number of unhoused individuals has doubled, with encampments expanding beyond parks and into residential neighborhoods. That kind of shift has a direct impact on property values. Realistically, most buyers aren't eager to invest in a home when nearby sidewalks have turned into makeshift living spaces. Unfortunately, where there's economic strain, crime often follows. City statistics show that theft and burglary rates in Medford are roughly 70% higher than the national average. And the challenges don't stop there. You might assume a city popular with retirees would have strong healthcare access, but the opposite seems to be happening. Local providers are reporting a serious shortage of primary care doctors, with appointment wait times stretching out for months. For many retirees, who play a major role in the housing market, that's a deal breaker. As a result, some are choosing to sell their homes and relocate to areas with better medical access. What's left behind is an oversupply of typical family homes, Three-bedroom houses sitting idle. The people who can afford them often don't want to live here, while those who would consider staying simply can't afford the cost. All of it leaves the market in a difficult, almost frozen state, stuck between supply and demand with no easy way forward. Number 5. Salem. You head back north and arrive at the state capital, Salem. You might expect a government hub to feel steady and secure, but instead, it comes across as surprisingly bleak. As you pass by the Capitol building, the contrast is hard to ignore. Grand marble columns on one side and tent encampments on the other. Salem has clearly lost much of its former appeal, and people aren't just complaining, they're leaving. What was once known as the Cherry City now feels more like a temporary stop for those preparing to exit the state altogether. Neighborhoods near the downtown area are seeing vacancy levels that are shockingly high, enough to make even seasoned real estate investors uneasy. The problems here seem to stem from a mix of policy missteps and a general lack of energy or opportunity. A big factor is the shift in how people work. Many state employees now work remotely or on hybrid schedules, which means there's far less reason to actually live in Salem. So the question becomes, why stay in a gloomy, rain-heavy capital when you could relocate somewhere more appealing, especially in a state with lower taxes? Migration data from United Van Lines backs this up, showing a steady pattern of more people leaving the Salem metro area than moving in over the past few years. The result is a growing number of mid-century homes sitting empty, with little interest from buyers. On top of that, the tax situation isn't doing residents any favors. Reports from Wallet Hub place Oregon among the states with the highest overall tax burdens, and in Salem, local taxes only add to that pressure. People are paying more, yet many feel like they're getting less in return as services decline. Crime is another growing concern. FBI data indicates that violent crime in the area has risen by about 30% in recent years. It's no longer just minor incidents. There's been an increase in more serious offenses like assaults and robberies. That kind of environment makes it difficult to attract young families, who are essential for keeping the housing market alive. Education is also becoming a sticking point. State report cards show local schools falling behind, which often becomes a deal-breaker for parents deciding where to settle down. Then there's the impact on property investors. Landlords, especially smaller ones, are starting to pull out due to strict tenant protection laws that make it difficult to deal with non-paying renters. Housing reports show a noticeable rise in property owners selling off their rentals, leaving many units in uncertain condition. Altogether, Salem is starting to feel like a city weighed down by its own systems, where bureaucracy continues to expand, but communities are slowly emptying out. Number 4. Ontario. From here, you make a sharp turn east and drive all the way to the Idaho border, eventually arriving in Ontario. This town ends up being a surprisingly revealing and honestly discouraging example of how border economics can shape a place. Standing right on the edge of the Pacific time zone, you look across the Snake River into Idaho, and the difference between the two sides is impossible to miss. Ontario has, in many ways, turned into a kind of service hub, especially for Idaho residents crossing over. But as an actual place to live, it's being left behind at an alarming rate. You'll notice the busy dispensaries right away, but as soon as you turn off into the residential streets, the energy disappears, replaced by an almost eerie emptiness. The homes here are aging fast, and it shows. County data suggests the median home is over 50 years old, and these aren't well-preserved classics. They're worn-out structures that have taken years of weathering without proper upkeep. Many of them would need major renovations, often costing tens of thousands of dollars, just to be considered livable again. That's a tough sell in a town where the poverty rate sits around 24%, according to census data. With roughly 1 in 4 residents living below the poverty line, it's hard to imagine a strong housing recovery taking hold anytime soon. Interestingly, many of the people earning solid incomes here, like dispensary owners and managers, don't actually live in Ontario. Instead, they choose to settle across the border in Idaho, towns like Fruitland or Payette, largely to avoid Oregon's higher income taxes. This shift isn't just anecdotal. It's backed by labor statistics showing strong population growth in nearby Idaho counties, while Ontario's numbers have remained flat or even declined. In a way, the town has become a place people visit for specific transactions, but not somewhere they're willing to call home. Safety is another major concern. Neighborhood Scout gives Ontario a crime index rating of just 3, meaning it's considered safer than only a very small percentage of cities across the country. For anyone thinking about buying property, that's a pretty alarming signal. Reports suggest violent crime rates here are significantly elevated, several times higher than the national average, which is often linked to the steady flow of transient traffic moving through the area. As you drive around, you'll see clear signs of that instability. Homes with boarded-up windows, yards left to grow wild, and properties that look completely neglected. Many landlords have simply stopped trying to find dependable tenants. With eviction systems overwhelmed and property crime remaining a constant issue, a growing number of investors are choosing to sell off what they can and leave. In the end, Ontario feels like a town that primarily serves its neighbor across the river, a neighbor that doesn't reciprocate, while its own housing market slowly deteriorates under the harsh, high desert conditions. Number 3. Astoria. Next, you drive all the way up to the far northwest corner of the state and arrive in Astoria. You might come in with a nostalgic, almost cinematic image in your head, something straight out of an 80s adventure film with foggy mornings and hidden treasure vibes. But by 2026, that fantasy quickly falls apart. What you're actually stepping into feels more like a damp, decaying headache that's pushing homeowners to their limits. As you navigate the steep, winding streets overlooking the Columbia River, the views are undeniably striking. At first glance, the old Victorian houses look charming, almost storybook-like. But the closer you get, the more the cracks start to show. Many of these large, historic homes are sitting empty, and the constant coastal moisture is slowly wearing them down. The weather here isn't just an inconvenience, it's a serious threat. Climate data shows Astoria gets hit with nearly 70 inches of rain every year, and over time, that kind of exposure acts more like a corrosive force than just bad weather. Local inspection reports suggest that more than 30% of these older homes are dealing with major issues like rot, mold, or even shifting foundations. In some ways, it feels like parts of the town are gradually slipping toward the river. It raises an obvious concern. Who wants to take on a property that demands constant, costly upkeep just to keep it from falling apart? The economic situation doesn't make things any easier. Astoria runs heavily on seasonal tourism, which creates huge swings in employment. Job data shows that unemployment spikes during the winter months when visitors disappear, leaving many workers without steady income. And if your job only exists during peak tourist season, it becomes nearly impossible to keep up with year-round expenses like a mortgage. This cycle of boom and bust has steadily pushed working-class residents out of the area. According to PayScale, the cost of living here is about 22% higher than the national average, yet wages haven't kept pace. That creates a strange imbalance. Expensive homes sitting empty, while the people who actually work in the town can't afford to live there. A recent city report highlighted this issue clearly, showing virtually no availability when it comes to affordable rentals. At the same time, higher-end homes are lingering on the market for months without buyers. Many of those properties were purchased by out-of-town investors as vacation rentals, but now those owners are facing steep maintenance costs and declining booking rates. As a result, they're trying to sell, but demand just isn't there. Walking through the area, you'll pass by beautiful houses that, despite their appearance, carry a noticeable musty smell even from the sidewalk. They stand as reminders of a tourism-driven economy that hasn't translated into a sustainable year-round community. In the end, Astoria is a place that's visually stunning, but increasingly difficult to live in. Damp, costly, and slowly emptying out. Number 2. Eugene. From there, you head back down into the Willamette Valley and roll into Eugene. Once hailed as the Emerald Jewel and known as Tracktown, USA, this city was supposed to be where culture, intellect, and creativity converged. But by 2026, the reality on the ground is far bleaker. Driving through neighborhoods like Bethel or the areas west of the University of Oregon, it almost feels like you've stumbled onto a set for a dystopian documentary. Eugene has lost control of both its streets and its housing market. The level of visible abandonment is striking for a city of this size. The cost of living crisis has hit here with brutal force. Over the past decade, Zillow data shows that the median home price has doubled, fueled by speculation and money flowing in from out of state. Local wages, however, never kept pace, leaving an enormous affordability gap. Now the market has cooled, and residents are left facing overpriced homes they simply cannot afford. The human toll is hard to miss, a surge in homelessness that is arguably the most visible per capita on the West Coast. The city's most recent point-in-time count recorded over 3,000 unhoused people, and many locals insist that figure drastically underestimates the reality. Travel through residential areas and the impact becomes undeniable. RVs and tents line curbs outside abandoned houses. Homeowners are leaving because they no longer feel safe. FBI statistics reveal just how real that danger is. In Eugene, your odds of falling victim to property crime are 1 in 24, a staggering figure. Every night, residents worry about smashed car windows or stolen deliveries. Meanwhile, taxes pile on top of the stress. Lane County property taxes, combined with numerous local levies, make monthly bills a heavy burden, particularly for those on fixed incomes. A United Way report highlights that 40% of households in the county struggle to cover basic necessities. When nearly half your neighbors are drowning financially, the entire neighborhood suffers. Even student housing isn't immune. Enrollment fluctuations and the rise of remote learning have left dorms and apartments partially empty, creating an oversupply that no one wants. In the end, Eugene has become a city marked by high prices, dwindling opportunities, and fading hope. The only things growing in front yards are for sale signs, a quiet symbol of a community in crisis. Number 1, Portland. And here we are, the final stop and the number 1 spot, Portland. This city was once celebrated in magazines and national news, the quirky, coffee-fueled darling that young professionals and retirees flock to for culture, food carts, and an urban lifestyle. But in 2026, cruising through the pothole-filled streets, it's clear that Portland has become a place where real estate equity goes to wither. The emptiness is tangible. It's not just the outskirts or forgotten neighborhoods. You'll see vacancies in areas that were once untouchable prime real estate. The decline here is real, and it's massive. Census data confirms the scale. Multnomah County has lost thousands of residents over the past 3 years, a population drop that's historically severe. But it's not only people leaving, it's wealth too. IRS migration statistics reveal billions in adjusted gross income moving out to states with friendlier tax policies like Washington and Texas. As the tax base shrinks, city services start to crumble. Police audits show that response times for priority calls have skyrocketed due to staffing shortages. Call 911, and you might be listening to hold music. Meanwhile, commercial vacancy rates downtown have soared, nearing 30% according to real estate firms like Colliers. That decay spreads outward like a contagion. When the core suffers, surrounding neighborhoods struggle. High-rise condos sit half-dark at night. Historic craftsman homes are boarded up, abandoned by landlords who have grown tired of losing battles against maintenance costs, strict tenant protection laws, and a difficult rental market. Many small-time landlords are selling to corporate owners who simply hold onto the properties rather than revitalizing them. Safety concerns are fueling the exodus as well. Redfin data consistently ranks Portland among the cities with the highest percentage of homeowners looking to leave the metro area. People are literally voting with their U-Hauls. Taxes pile on top of the problems. Residents are paying the second highest marginal income tax in the nation, yet many still have to dodge trash, needles, and human waste just to get to their front doors. Portland has shifted from a beloved, quirky city into a cautionary tale of urban decline. A once vibrant city now earning its place as the number 1 city where the lights are going out in 2026. The sad truth about Oregon's housing market is that this isn't a simple cyclical downturn. It's a structural collapse driven by policy missteps, runaway costs, and eroding trust in public institutions. It's heartbreaking to watch such a beautiful state transform into a warning sign for what can happen when cities lose balance. If you're planning to leave, or thinking about buying the dip, good luck. And if you appreciate unfiltered honesty, hit that like button, share this with friends who still think Oregon is paradise, and subscribe for more road trips through the American housing crisis. Drive safe out there.